All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Zowe system demo. This is for the just released 2.10. Let's see, the first squad to present is going to be the API mediation layer, and that's going to be Pablo. So go ahead, Pablo. You can share your screen.
Yes, hello. Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you are able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So first, maybe some context. In a previous release, we enabled the possibility of the API catalog to be deployed as standalone. This means that it will load static definitions of APIs, and it will start as a regular web page disconnected from APML and authentication services. And it's a way to expose APIs and, let's say, play around with APIs that are provided either by open source or anything that can be provided by the adopters themselves. Now, as part of the 2.10 release, we are now enabling the possibility of customizing some aspects of the UI. This comes, as I'll show later in the documentation. So let me first show what it can look like. And this is just one way to show different colors, but the choices are to customize colors, the fonts, the logo, things that can be used to brand it and to make the catalog fit better with existing assets that the adopters may have. This just a clarification. This is showing work in progress. It includes things that will be part of the 2.11. So yeah, there are a few things to fix here still, and this can be done as part of the catalog build itself or as part of the Zowe YAML, as it is documented here in the current released version of 2.10. The branding includes, as I mentioned before, the logo. In our case, we didn't find any logo, vendor neutral logo to show here, so we're just showing the normal one, the one that comes in the open source. But it allows you to customize these properties, and not only colors and fonts, but also we can provide a custom documentation link, which in our case it's showing here, and it's pointing to the Zowe docs in our case, right? But it can be pointing to any internal documentation. So that would be all. This is how you customize it in the YAML. That's it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
That's really cool. I really like it. I was thinking of doing the same thing with other parts of Zowe in the past, but there hasn't been a lot of users asking for it. Maybe someday we'll get around to it. But I also took a quick look at the schema and I see it all in there. So thanks for keeping that current. That's really great stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Pablo. Sean, I think you're next. You have a number of topics.
Sure. Yeah, let me go through some of these things. This spans a few squads, so I just put myself as Sean squad there for today, I guess. But so let's go through the first one here. Certificate documentation overhaul. This is the work of many people, and I think it's great. One of the biggest criticisms of install and config for the Zowe servers is certificates. And so if you go over to the configuring certificate section of the documentation, which we've always had, this has been reworked. There was some terminology that we wanted to get consistent in here, and part of the issue that we had was people not knowing core concepts or people using the terminology of the concepts differently. And so we ended up with this first section of the documentation just saying, here are the certificate concepts that we're using in Zowe, right? And so we do explain what we mean by key store and trust store. And we even explain that, you can have a single keyring that serves both purposes if you need. This is what we see a lot of people doing. We explain the difference between what we call a file-based key store, such as PKCS12, or a keyring-based key store here. And we also talk about the differences between server certificates and client certificates, so that when we get to the Zowe certificate requirements section of this page, it makes more sense when we talk about extended key usage. You can also see that in the certificate verification section, the headers of that are labeled by the properties that you'll see in the YAML, so it's more clear at a glance, just looking at the sidebar of this page where you want to go on this page. So it should be perhaps less reading to get to the part that you want to read and more insightful. Each of these pages has had significant improvements. One of the cool things here is that in our Zowe.yaml, we always talked about 5 certificate scenarios, and they were labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll actually see them here. You can see on the sidebar, we have scenario number 1, scenario number 2. Basically, we have broken down the little items in each of the scenarios and explain them a little bit better here. So it's easier for people to get right to the part that they're interested in. We talk about just all sorts of different things here. I don't want to go through it all because maybe I'm not even the best person to explain all of it, but it has all been overhauled. So I'd like you all to take a look and see if you like what we have, but also if you have, ideas for even farther improvement. I don't know if we're done yet. I just like how far we've come so far. So before I move on to the next topic, is there anyone who wants to jump in and weigh in on this issue as well? Because I was not even close to the only contributor.
Hey, Sean, this is Elliot. I just want to say, this is a fantastic job. I mean, this is obviously a pain point that we have had in the past. So I think this is, quite a significant enhancement for us. So well done to everyone who was involved in this. It looks really good. I would just kind of make sort of one comment is that, if there are any of us out there in the community that have worked with adopters in the past who have had trouble with configuring certificates, and I would suggest that would be the majority. So if there's anyone out there, if you remember an adopter that's had difficulty, feel free to send a link to this documentation to that adopter and seek some feedback. It would be great to have that validation, whether we've now covered most of the bases that we should be, if it's much clearer, much easier to understand, or whether there are still bits and pieces missing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I suspect some of the feedback that we'll be getting is also, even if our documentation is now good, to increase the convenience by which the tool currently works so that they don't even need to read as much documentation. But yeah, I would love to reach out to the customers and users and see what they think of this.
Fantastic. But great job, everyone. This is really good.
Yeah, well done to the doc squad here, and I guess I would recommend people periodically join the doc squad meetings and see if there's other ways that you can contribute, because this was a great effort, but I'm hoping that there are many more like it. So let me then move on to a little bit about YAML stuff. There's two topics here. One is app server defaults YAML as a way to field patch and document behaviors, and the other one is MVS symbol support in YAML. And these are both cool in their own way. I'll go through the app server default YAMLs quickly. So it's actually not specific to the app server. ZSS has had this even longer. The idea is that if I go to an older version of Zowe here, and I look at how the app server actually started up, you will find this this file called convertenv.sh, and it was an attempt to try and be compatible with every single version of Zowe ever, even combinations that weren't possible to do on the latest versions of Zowe. So it was a little bit too complicated. And what it was doing is whenever the servers start up, they're given environment variables, and the servers consume certain environment variables, and ZWE produces certain environment variables. And in the very beginning of V2, for example, there was a shift by which some environment variables were renamed. And so what happened is we had aliasing in here to convert from the new name back to the old name so that things would still work. But over time, this became very, very complicated to figure out what was actually going on with the server, or if there was an issue, how to fix it. And we even discovered that the app server had some logic that was not by configuration, that there were certain things within the server that could not be configured. So the solution here is this Zowe.yaml. If you've seen the configuration manager feature that was added in like 2.4 and onwards, I believe, there's this feature of configuration manager where you can have multiple YAML files. And what will happen if you give config manager multiple files is it's going to merge them all together with a merge policy and then give you the result. So the idea that we had is, what if we just had a file for each server called the defaults.yaml file, and it would just state, here are all the things that the server will do if you don't give it any farther customizations. So what we wanted to do is take all of the weird environment variables and all of the weird hard coding out of the server and put it into a YAML file. And that is what we did in 2.10. It was a significant amount of work, but it's finally done. And the great thing about this file is it is a file in the same format as a user's own Zowe.yaml. So although this file is not to be edited directly, it serves as an example for how you can farther customize the app server. So you can see every single decision that it takes based on environment variables or content from whatever Zowe.yaml is being used to override this. But one of the features of Zowe.yaml lately is that you can do very simple scripting inside of templates. And so a lot of our configuration for the server was conditional. And this does allow you to do conditionals. So let's say that you don't like one of the things in here, or you're trying to field patch something rather than waiting for a new delivery of Zowe if there's a bug in one of these behaviors here, what you can tell the user to do, if you spotted something that's wrong here, is you can tell the user to go into their own Zowe.yaml and just override one of these. If this was in the environment variables like it used to be, it would require editing a read-only file. So this is much preferred in that now the user can actually do it in their own config file. So the way that this works is by having the app server, when it starts up, actually include this file in the list of YAML files that it's about to read. You'll see it right here on line 58. So ZWE CLI parameter config is whatever the user passes in. And then we prepend it with our own defaults file so that it's always there. And this ends up with the app server needing to parse the YAMLs on its own terms, and ZSS does the same. ZSS has its own defaults.yaml file here, and much like the app server, it includes this into the config on its own terms. We want to give this ability to other servers, the gateway, third-party products, everything. We want to give people the ability to bring their own defaults.yaml, but we're not done yet. To do it in a generic way, we need to enhance config manager one more time, and we are working on that. It's just not done yet. But I guess the short story for now is if you're getting weird behaviors in the app server or in ZSS, you can look for their defaults.yaml file to observe what they're doing, and then see if the solution to your problem is right there, and if so, then the user can override it in their own YAML file. Any questions on that one? Okay, then I'll move on to MVS simple support in the YAML, which is even simpler to explain here. If I look into my Zowe.yaml right now, I have even more templates. And one of the templates that's interesting is this line right here. So this line right here has a template that says ZOS.symbol resolve and then a little quoted string ampersand sysname. So a lot of administrators use sysname to point to their ZOS hostname and use this quite often to make sure that whatever they're doing on ZOS is portable between different LPARs. So in some ways, Zowe was lacking the ability to be truly portable when it came to moving from LPAR to LPAR. And this was one of those ways, is that in the Zowe.yaml, you'd specify your external domain, and for some people, that's just the LPAR name, and there wasn't a great way to make that a variable until now. So you can see here that I have a template here that is part hard-coded, part not. The sysname is going to return my system name, but without the full qualification of .rocketsoftware.com. So I just put that on the end. But regardless, it becomes portable in that way. So yeah, that's all you have to do to use it. You can just use that in any place that you want. You can try and resolve any symbol that you want. Sysname seems like the most useful one to me, but any one that you want can be put there. Any questions about that? Okay, then I will go over to another simple one, desktop redirect to gateway. You may have been involved in a troubleshooting case with people before in which they would report that the Jez Explorer was not working, that they could not log into it. And I got this report quite a bit. The reason why is that the JS Explorer depends upon ZOSMF, which basically means it needs the mediation layer. And what people were doing is they were going directly to the desktop URL, bypassing the mediation layer, and then trying to use the JS Explorer and getting some weird error. And I thought that there were two problems with that. One is the JS Explorer won't work, but the other one is that if they already have the mediation layer on and they're not going to it, then they're losing all the benefits of it. So we fixed the documentation, and somehow that didn't work. So for whatever reason, people were going to the wrong URLs. We just figured the best way to get people to the right URLs by forcing a redirect. So whenever you go to the desktop URL directly, if the mediation layer is running, it will just redirect you to the same desktop on the mediation layer port instead. This is the default behavior, but if for some reason this is not what a user wants to do, you can use a query parameter on your URL. You can use $ZWED-no-redirect equals 1. That'll stop all the redirect behavior. So we hope that this is non-disruptive and stops people from going to things that aren't working properly. But you know, if people do get caught in this and they really need their no redirect behavior, then they can get it by this query parameter. Any questions about that? Okay, then I guess we're flying right through this. The last one is the ZWE diagnose command. And this one's pretty simple, but hopefully is going to help a lot of people out. When you have ZWE on the command line, there's a new command on it called diagnose. And what this does is it tells you something about a message ID that you've seen. So all you have to do is use the -e parameter and then put in a message ID that you saw in your Zowe log. I did something stupid with my config a few minutes before the demo. And so I ended up with this message ID because my config was just this file like doesn't exist or something. But if I wanted to find out more about that message ID, I could put it here, ZWE diagnose -e, and then I pasted in my ZWED message ID. Now, what this does is it looks at the first 4 letters of the message ID and figures out which part of Zowe did this message come from. So you can see here it says, this is from the desktop or the app server because it has the D in the message ID. And so what it then says is you can find more information about those particular codes in one of these 2 places. So at the time that we made this code, the message IDs for the desktop weren't yet published to the website, so we used a GitHub link here, but most of them actually go straight to the docs website. But you'll see that it gives me a link where I can go directly to descriptions on message IDs. So we didn't want to bake that into ZWE because it would be a maintenance nightmare. So instead, we're just linking over to wherever the documentation is. But the second thing that the ZWE diagnose command does that I think is pretty cool is it takes whatever message ID you just gave it and it wraps it in a GitHub link, which you can use to see if there's anyone in the community that has reported issues about this message ID. So in my case, no, because I did something very stupid on my own. But you can see pull requests here. You can see code here. So you can see where it came from. But ideally, you know, there might be something more interesting in the discussions panel if I picked a better message ID, but this will give people a very quick portal into a place where hopefully either they'll find the exact description or the exact line of code or a conversation in which people are already talking about an issue that they saw. Like in this case, that we point right to some issues. So any questions on that? I think it'll be really useful for people.
That looks amazing, Sean. Is it integrated into our documentation yet?
I hope so. The documentation here is supposed to be automated. So let me check if our automation's still working. Maybe our automation is not working. I don't see diagnose here. I have to look into that.
I would think that it would fit quite well to the troubleshooting section as well.
Oh, that's a good point. And that's not automated. We have to do that ourselves. So yes, I think here we have a, you know, before you file an issue, first gather this information. We should probably edit this page to say, go and check out the ZWE diagnose command. That's a great point.
Yeah. But that's good. That's I like that addition. That's I think that's going to be really useful.
Yeah, we were thinking about making it more intelligent in the future, that the diagnose command just tells you where to look next, but the diagnose command maybe could also be somewhat intelligent in the future by saying like, hey, it looks like you have a networking issue or something. I'm not sure how it would do that, but we're brainstorming, like, can we do any system analysis through ZWE to report likely issues?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that topic's more for the system squad stuff. If you have other great ideas for diagnosis, I'm sure they would love to hear about it.
I'm just thinking that it might also fit nicely with our chat plans as well. I could see this as being a really perfect use case for chat.
Yeah, I would think that chat of some sort should be able to pop out at minimum exactly what we see here to just get you to the next place to look at. Anyway, so that was all of my stuff, and as far as I know, I'm the last person on the list, so I'll hand it back to you, Nick, unless there's lots more questions about other things.
Okay, I guess no more questions. That was it for the topics on the agenda. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that anybody would like to present? Okay, if there's nothing else, it sounds like we can end the call early for today. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Great demos.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.